Okay, and this section is the one that gets students the most. It's our variables. Very, very important in the laboratory to define your variables. And we're not doing in-person labs this semester, but in-person labs for each experiment, I'd have you guys defining each variable. I want you to consider them in the virtual experiments that I'm going to give you. So let's go ahead and describe which variables are which first. From the lecture, you should have received the definitions, but we have a dependent variable in our experiment. And what our dependent variable is, the dependent variable, I'll go ahead and just write shorthand, dv for that. The dependent variable changes because of the independent variable. It's going to change because we are manipulating the independent variable. So for the dependent variable, we don't manipulate that. We don't touch it. We add it to our experiment, but we're not manipulating that variable. We're not changing the levels whatsoever. If it does change, it's due to the independent variable. So what is an independent variable then? IV for short. The independent variable is what you, as the scientist, what you change or manipulate. Maybe that's an experiment for a problem that we've had before where I am changing temperature in the environment. So maybe I'm higher that temperature, maybe I'm lowering that temperature, but I am physically doing that in my experiment. I am either raising or lowering the temperature. Temperature would be my independent variable then. And whatever I'm assessing, maybe it's bacterial growth. I'm not affecting the bacterial growth directly myself, but it possibly might change because of the independent variable. So in this section of the laboratory, I want you guys to define the dependent variable and the independent variable. It looks like I want you to circle the dependent. So let me go ahead and circle the dependent word here. And it looks like I want you to underline the independent. So I'll leave it underlined. We're going to go ahead and do that. So for this problem, growth of bacterial populations is measured in cold, medium, and high temperatures. Okay, we've kind of already talked about this, but before you guys find the DV and the IV, I want you to first define your groups. What are you analyzing? That's going to help you tremendously in this part of the lab. So let's analyze our groups. What are we analyzing? Looks like growth of bacterial populations is 1. Let me go ahead and box them to not confuse you guys. So this is one group, growth of bacterial populations. That's one group. And it looks like cold, medium, high temperatures is another group. Those are the two things that I'm analyzing in this experiment. Okay, let me go back. So let's first define, I think it's easier to define my independent variable first. Maybe you don't think so. I like to find out which one I'm actually manipulating first. So growth of bacterial populations is measured in cold, medium, high temperature. You are affecting the temperature because you are making it either cold, room, or high. You're altering those levels, and so that would be the independent variable because you are manipulating that group in your experiment. And then the dependent variable, growth of bacterial populations, is affected because of the change in temperature, the IV.